I will call the Fiscal Committee to order. And folks, we have new microphones. So to talk, it's on the right. To not talk.
We only have one button.
Oh, I have two.
Oh, no, we only have one button.
Oh, okay.
Ours is the idiot version. You get the sophisticated one.
Chairman, I think the point is if it's red, it's live.
Yeah. I don't know. Anyhow, if it's red, it's live. And you will also notice that you can hear through the mic that's on the speaker. So we are moving forward with technology that obviously I don't understand. So if we could, the first item on the agenda are the minutes for January 14th, 2020. Could I have a motion to accept? Thank you, thank you. Are there any?
Second.
Oh, yeah, Gary Daniels.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Are there any changes? Seeing none. Mike, I can just raise hands on this, right? Okay. All right, if everybody would raise their hands, please. Opposed? Abstain? One. Oh, two. Sorry. The next is the acceptance of the meeting of January 21st. Could I have a motion to approve? Thank you, Senator. Second by Senator Daniels. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Abstain? One. Okay. Under old business, we have FIS 22-023, and it's currently on the table. Is that where it should remain, or do I have anyone that wants to take it off? Seeing none, we will move on. Okay. We have 4 items that have been removed from the consent calendar. Under tab 5, 22-073. Under tab 8, 22-077 and 22-080. And under tab 9, we have FIS 22-081. Okay. Representative Erf, were you the one that wanted this off? 073? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
Is the department available to answer questions? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Ms. Rounds, could you hang on just a second?
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion, I would like someone to make a motion to approve all of the other items on the consent calendar. All those in favor, raise your hand. Opposed? Okay, consent calendar is approved, except for the items that we removed. So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. And I appreciate the department's information that it sent over the other day, the supplemental information. My question really is about how can we measure the success of the Doorways program beyond just saying they've had contact 27,000 times, particularly in light of the fact that overdose deaths are up sharply in Manchester, 36% versus year ago, and Nashua, 31% versus year ago. How do we know more than just 27,000 interactions? Is it the same people, different people? Where are they from? Do we have information that the referrals are actually getting picked up and the appointments made? How can we really understand that this program is helping?
So, good morning. For the record, I am Katya Fox. I am the Director of the Division for Behavioral Health. And in anticipation of your question, we did prepare quite a comprehensive response, which hopefully was shared with the full committee. But to your point, and I know this is an area that we often get questions on, and we would love to be able to give you a very robust answer. But we can tell you that we have the Doorway report. So when we provide those numbers of how many are served on a monthly basis and then cumulatively, those are the numbers of unique individuals in that particular reporting period. So when we say 27,000, it could be that they're replicated, but we're seeing roughly between 800 and 1,000 per month. And that's on a unique identifier, a unique visit person. They may have visited more than once. From a referral perspective, we do have the requirement through the federal grant that we do an assessment, and those assessments are done upon initiation of the contact. So this is required for that federal funding that we receive that is subject to this matter this morning. And then there are required follow-ups at the 6-month period, the 12-month period, and discharge. What we're finding, and this has been a problem across the country, is being able to be in touch with people throughout that duration. So at the 6-month period and as you get to 12 months, it's harder for follow-up because they may have moved on. They may have relapsed, they may be in recovery and don't want to have that contact, and for a variety of reasons, we're unable to have the robust data that we would get if we had a higher percentage of returns on those follow-up assessments, which are quite lengthy. We have continued to look at ways that we can work with our quality unit on how we can measure effectiveness of this particular system. Access was the number one goal of this project in this what has become a program when we receive this. So the access appears to be working by the numbers and by the surveys that we've done. However, we do know that we need a really robust evaluation, and that is in the works, and we'll be procuring for that evaluation shortly, because that was never part of the initial funding. It was through this SAMHSA-led federal survey that we need to do with that follow-up at the individual level. But we need a more comprehensive assessment of whether this system is working. And again, we have secured the funding through some supplemental block grant dollars, and we'll be looking at the efficacy, getting at what we all want to know.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
Two quick follow-ups, if I could. One is, if we re-implemented that closed-loop referral kind of thing, would that give us the data on following the users across sites? And two, how is the Doorways going to help us not see drug overdose deaths that are up over 30% in our two biggest cities? What else do we need to be doing so we're not losing an increasing number of people?
So I'll answer your second question first in that this action will allow us to move the $4 million between class lines to be able to purchase naloxone. Naloxone and medicated assisted treatment are what have prevented deaths. We would have many more deaths. We have a huge increase in the overdoses, but we're finding the effectiveness of having naloxone be ubiquitous in the areas, so that we want to continue that, and we're finding that the demand for naloxone is high. So that's what that $4 million will do in this item. So we're doing that. I don't think the doorways can solve the problem. I think as you know, it's multi-faceted and it's complex, and it's only gotten worse as a result of the pandemic. And so we're taking other steps. So for example, some of the harm reduction, the efforts under this is not just to purchase naloxone, but to provide it to hard to reach communities, which we find in the larger areas. But again, there's the whole law enforcement side. There's the individual family situations, and there is the housing, the lack of housing as an availability. And so we're just doing everything we can using all the resources we have to try to mitigate those rising numbers. Oh, I'm sorry.
Go
Could you
ahead.
repeat that again?
How or whether the closed loop referral kind of thing would supplement the information you have on the doorways?
So closed loop referral is a very effective tool at being able to have providers have the information they need to treat somebody in a holistic way. And so it also assures that when a referral is made, I think to your earlier point, how do we know what happens after a referral is made? Is there follow-up? We would know that as a closed loop referral, because there would be a report back and the exchange of information with the patient's consent.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Senator.
Thank you,
Dodd.
Madam Chair. Thank you for your testimony today. Is there any way of aggregating the cost of doorways and associated programs into a single dollar figure so we can get an estimate of how much the system is costing us?
I'm looking at you. I mean, I think we have our funding sources. We know how much we've spent on each program. The state opioid response grant has been in effect since 2018. The doorways opened January 1st of 2019. We have all of those costs that we could provide. And then the question becomes, do you want it holistically to include other federal funds and other general funds that were already in place before the state opioid response? So it depends on how vast you want it, but we have all those numbers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd leave it to the pleasure of the committee. I'd like to know doorways, but again, if we know what we had before and what we're doing now, that gives us a basis to start comparing effectiveness in terms of dollars spent.
Sure. We can go right back to, I think it was the fall of 2018 for the doorways,
Right.
when we first contracted with them, and we can go right through up until now.
Thank you.
Ms. Rounds, you agree?
Yes, I was just asking her a question. I think that there's a chart that we created not that long ago that probably would get at the answer.
Okay. I think Senator Rosenwald's question about the effectiveness is so important, because just giving, I know I use Narcan out, doesn't solve the problem. It postpones the problem. And I think that what most of us were hoping is that with doorways that we would be able to, have a better handle on the problems with drug overdose. So, okay, no, I mean, that's just the way it is. So. Are there any other questions or comments?
One question.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe in the realm of hypothetical, but can you in any way attempt to correlate the effects of COVID and the impacting societal disruption, if you will, to the spike in these? I don't know if you have the capability, but I'd be interested to know whether this spike is has causation or correlation to COVID, or is it something that's going on other than that?
I'm turning it off, she's turning it on. Sorry about that. So thank you, Senator. I think that there have been national surveys and studies and indications. When you say correlation, I think we can make some assumptions about that and share that information that we do have available.
Thank you. Oh, yes, Senator Daniels.
Thank you. Could you share what the department is doing to prevent these things from happening? Because, I mean, the information we got said from 2019 to current, it's been relatively steady, which means all the money that we have thrown into this really hasn't done anything in bringing the numbers down. You're coming and you're asking for an additional $4 million for naloxone, but that's indicative of the fact that you wouldn't need it unless the rates of incidences were increasing. So I'm interested in knowing what you're doing to try to get to the root of this, and if there are obstacles to doing that, what are they?
So thank you, Senator. That's a great opportunity to start talking about prevention and all the prevention efforts. When we talk about state opioid response, it's a categorical funding. It's specifically for opioids and now stimulants, and it's well after the fact when people are in crisis and in need of these services. We have the Governor's Commission, which has made a big prevention part of a big focus of its work, to which we provide the contracts and go before GNC with the Governor's Commission funding to fund those programs. So there are multiple programs that are happening at the preventative level. So I'd be happy to provide a list or the information about the prevention efforts that are happening across the board. And not only with us, but with the Department of Education as well.
Yes, go ahead.
By virtue of the fact that the numbers don't seem to be coming down, would you say that the preventative efforts were successful?
So I think with prevention, the problem is when we make an investment, we don't see an immediate return. When you give someone naloxone, you see an immediate return. But when you invest in prevention, we don't have it's the absence of. And so when we're asked, the increase or the steadiness of the numbers of deaths from opioids, we don't have the number of those, what we prevented in that time period. So I think it's hard to quantify, and it's hard for us to want to fund it and think about it and invest in it because we don't see that quick return on investment. But we do believe that prevention does make a difference in the lives of the people that we serve.
Yes, follow up.
Would you expect that with the money that we put into prevention that you should see the numbers of overdoses going down?
Yes.
Thank you.
Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd be interested in knowing if the department or perhaps LBA could pull together the numbers for under the broad categories of prevention, treatment, and interdiction. And that would give us a really good representation of the balance of funding towards these different efforts, and maybe there needs to be some work done there. Thank you.
I think it also might be helpful if we could get something from the courts about how many cases, what's their caseload, because the things that we're talking about, if the caseload is going down, then I think we would know that, prevention is working. If the caseload is going up, then we might not. But I do think that you can't separate what DHHS is trying to do from what the court system is trying to do. Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have had written inquiries from several county attorneys and their staff about what can we possibly do to ease the laws. I won't say legalize, but change the parameters, because they are buried under drug cases, and that's from two separate counties.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no further questions, could I have a motion, please? Senator D'Alessandro moves to accept, and seconded by Senator Rosenwald. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Okay. 073, Emmerich votes yes. Erf.
Yes.
Leishman. Yes. Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
22073 passes on a vote of 10-0. We now turn to tab 8, 22077. Representative Leishman, I believe you had some questions on this.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. And thanks for taking my question. I want to just thank you folks for answering a few questions, but it led me to a question, so.
Excuse me, would you move your microphone a little closer? Thank you.
So thank you for taking my question. So it said in your response that you have a contractor that provides this service, and there are about 100 cases that are under investigation and a backlog of, I think it said 860 roughly. Now, during the pandemic, there was certainly a severe food issue. People weren't getting food. Now, what happens when this investigative unit goes out? Are they trying to recover monies lost, or to verify people that are getting support, should be getting support?
Thank you for your question. For the record, my name is Karen Hebert, and I'm the Director for the Division of Economic and Housing Stability. So just to clarify part of your question, with respect to the Special Investigations Unit, that is not a contracted unit. Those are state employees. The contractor is for the system known as New Heights that maintains the eligibility programs for processing those applications, including SNAP. So the consultant is actually the system vendor for those, which is the bulk of the expenditures for this item. So the Special Investigations Unit works to identify whether or not there is, they make a determination with respect to their findings on fraud investigations, whether someone really wasn't eligible, who may have misled the department in some respect regarding their eligibility, or were using the benefits when they were no longer entitled to them. For example, if they move out of state, they're required to report their address to us. So if they've moved out of state and they are using the benefit in another state without us being informed, that could be considered fraud. So the department would take steps to try to recover the funding with the means that it has available to do so. So there are a number of Special Investigation Unit staff who conduct these investigations for the department. So the funding is about $17,000 out of this item that would go towards overtime in order to try to catch up with that backlog, which was created in part because of the pandemic and an extraordinary number of referrals that the unit received for fraud investigations that were quite higher than what we normally receive.
Just a further question, if I could, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Thanks. So what's the success rate? Because obviously a number of these people probably don't have a lot to offer financially. So is the unit successful in recouping some of the losses, or are we spending a lot of money to chase something we can't catch?
It is successful in part. I think that it depends on the circumstances, and if you'd like, I'd be more than happy to get you a more precise percentage of the success rate.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an existing unit in the department. Did we budget any money in the House Bill 1 to make changes to New Heights, or is this the only changes we're making to New Heights? I guess I'm asking, why do we only need this now, and why didn't the department need it during the budget?
The changes that are needed for the system at this time were predicated by an evaluation conducted by the U.S. Department of Agriculture and findings that we received regarding the need to change the way we were documenting, tracking, and reporting these types of cases. So the changes are necessary in the system to be able to meet the requirements or recommendations that came out of that evaluation.
Follow up.
Follow up?
When did we get that evaluation?
That is a good question.
I mean, I guess my
I'm gonna
question
say
is
within the-
before the budget was
Oh, well,
finished.
yes. It's so the evaluation would have been completed within the last few months.
Okay,
So certainly
after
not
the
within
budget.
time for the budget.
Thank you.
I would also just mention that these are 100% federal ARPA funds, and ARPA funds were not budgeted in the budget.
Senator Gaida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many employees are in this department, division, agency, bureau?
I believe it's 5 or 6 at this time.
Right, how many cases are, follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How many cases are they prosecuting right now? No,
Well,
I mean, are they pursuing investigating right now?
Sure. So at the moment, there is a backlog of 866 cases that need to be investigated or completed with the investigation. So some of them have already started. Typically, there is an average of about 100 cases pending at any given time. So this is quite an extraordinary amount.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Senator Gaida moves to approve. Second. Second by Senator Rosenwald. Clerk, call the roll.
Roll call on 077. Representative Emmerich votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator D'Alessandro. Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10 to 0.
FIS 22077 passes with a vote of 10 to 0. Okay. We'll now turn to FIS 22080. And this is with the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery. Does someone have a question? Yes. Mr. Caswell, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Taylor Caswell with Executive Director at Gopher.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner. Are we currently having any funds expended towards attracting folks to the trades in our schools, whether it's by the CTEs or any other agencies of government or otherwise? Do you know?
Speaking for Gopher and for my department, BEA, no, not at this point, but I imagine there may be other programs in other agencies. But sir, I can't speak to that right now.
Follow-up? Are there any further questions?
So, thank you, Madam Chair. Would you be amenable to tabling this till we can find out whether funds are being expended?
I mean, that's obviously your decision, Senator. I think this program is unique in the sense that it is currently in operation in a half the form, I suppose, that we would hope that we would see it, and it has proven to be quite successful. In lieu of the fact that if there are other programs, I'm not aware of any that are operating at the success rate of this program.
Yes, follow-up?
So, can you elucidate a little bit on the success rate, or, you know, in terms of funds expended, people moving into jobs that wouldn't otherwise gone that way, or into training programs? Is there any way you have any data on that?
Well, what I could do is I could ask John Nyan, who is here today from the Hampton Chamber, who has been running the program for the last several months or years, who has that data. John, do you want to? He just happens to be here, Senator.
Good morning, and for the record, my name is John Nyan, President of the Hampton Area Chamber of Commerce, also the Chair of the New Hampshire Association of Chamber Executives. Senator, good question. This program started, if I may just give you a little bit of background, this program started with a small $10,000 grant from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, New Hampshire School of Mechanical Trades, and when it came to high school. We put 10 kids through this program, and it was so successful because of the interest from the students to continue with the training. We had a second grant from the foundation of $10,000. We then expanded with the help of New Hampshire Mechanical Trades, not wanting to add more dollars to their cost. They actually contributed in-kind services for the second program, where we then were able to expand one high school to 7 high schools, and from 10 students to 20 students. This program that we're proposing would expand it once again, not only for Seacoast High Schools, but for Greater Manchester High Schools also to be included, since the New Hampshire School of Mechanical Trades has a second location in Manchester. The success rate so far, we have had close to 30, I believe it was 29 students that actually completed the program. And right now at the New Hampshire School of Mechanical Trades, we have 10 that have gone on to extend training in a particular trade, be it plumbing, electrical, HVAC, oil and heating. So it's been a success. And one of the things about this grant application, if I may, is that we have now connected with Apprenticeship New Hampshire, to where we'll be working with them as a follow-up. Once the student goes through this program, they will then have the opportunity and benefit to go into an apprenticeship program, and this grant application would support that.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I heard you say that this is taking care of Seacoast and Manchester.
That is correct.
Would it be possible to dedicate some of these funds to the more rural areas where I can tell you with my house undergoing some renovations, there is a desperate need for, and I would like to see some comment on that.
Senator, we would love to expand this program at this point. Right now, there are only 2 locations from the New Hampshire School of Mechanical Trades. I know that there has been discussion, which I can't tell you exactly what the details are, of them expanding to the North Country and adding a 3rd location. But I think it's important to note that this particular concept, we could do anywhere in the state if we had the facilities to do them in.
And so I would presume by that you mean some sort of a permanent structure.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some programs, not mechanical trades programs, that are actually taking place in different high schools. But in this case, with Mechanical School of Trades, they have not only classroom facilities, but actually workshops where the young adults can actually do physical training.
Thank
If
you.
I
No
may,
further
Senator,
questions.
just real quickly on that subject, this program, there are other partners involved with it, the Chambers being one of them, and they have demonstrated, at least in this instance, a real aptitude to get this program up and running. We have committed to continue to working with them to find other locations if this program is as successful as we expect it to be, to grow this program statewide. I mean, that would be my goal with this, because this is an area that we really need to focus on for reasons similar to what your experience has been.
You have a follow-up, or are you okay? Are there any additional questions?
Move the
Yes.
item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're creating CTE centers all around the state, and we're enhancing them, improving them all the time. Why isn't there some kind of a synergistic relationship between these entities that we're creating, and we're spending millions and millions of dollars to do that? Just think of what we're doing in Hudson right now with the addition to the school. But why isn't there a relationship? You got a natural setting, and you talked about a bricks and mortar. The bricks and mortars are there. The question is communication. Is there good communication there between the system, the school systems that are operating these CTE centers? I mean, that's why all this money is being spent, and we're programmed to keep spending this money. This is an ongoing situation, and we're bonding and we're spending this money, and it seems to me that it must not be working well if indeed you have to do something like this and you're looking for places to go. Tell me why there isn't a cooperative situation.
There is actually, Senator, and I know for speaking for my department, we have very good relationship with the CTE centers and across the state. When I spoke to Senator Gaida about how we're looking at ways to be able to expand this program beyond just the Manchester and Seacoast areas into rural schools with CTE programs that have exactly these types of programs, I think that is our next target rather than building something new. That would be absolutely where we would go next.
Seeing no, did you have another question?
Just move the item.
All right, thank you, Senator Gaida. Do I have a second? Senator Morris? The clerk, please call the roll.
Item 08, got to turn on, 080. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf?
Yes.
Representative Leishman?
Yes.
Representative Lynn?
Yes.
Senator Daniels?
Yes.
Senator Morse?
Yes.
Senator Gaida?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald? Senator D'Alessandro? Yes. Representative Umberger?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
FIS 22-080 passes on a vote of 10-0. We will now turn to tab 9, FIS 22081. Okay. I think we have some questions for Mr. Arlinghouse, Commissioner Arlinghouse. Good morning.
There we go. Hi, Charlie Arlinghouse, the Commissioner of Administrative Services.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Are there questions that anyone would like to ask? Okay. Yes,
Thank you, Madam Chair. Charlie, always a pleasure to see you. I've looked at the report, I've looked at the vacancy report, Commissioner, and as I look at it, and I look at the percentages in the departments, it seems to me that we have a problem.
Well,
And how is this going to enhance your ability? I've sponsored a piece of legislation for you to do some things with recruitment, but it seems to me our problem now is recruitment and retention. We have a dual problem. And when I look at the numbers, we've got almost 2,000 vacancies in state government, spread throughout all of our departments. So how is this going to be effective in supporting what we need is that recruitment policy, I guess?
so to put it in context for everybody, the current vacancy rate in state government is about 18%. 18% of authorized positions are not filled right now. That's one of those things, right? Every department has some positions they just don't fill, because if we fill them, we can't meet the lapse requirement. You're counting on us to maintain a very healthy vacancy rate, and if state vacancy rates get below about 10%, we can't function as state government because they're too low, right? And you've budgeted them to be higher than that. But 18% is really remarkably high. It's ticking down a little bit. I'll make that note that in the first year of a budget, vacancy rates tend to be higher. Legislatures budgets authorize lots of new positions, and they take a while to fill, so they tend to be higher in the first year, lower in the second year. Vacancy rates in state government tend to be higher when it's a good economy for job seekers. This is a very good economy for job seekers. It's a wonderful economy for job seekers because there are lots more positions than there are people looking for them. So state government in those circumstances tends to be a little harder to come by. We tend to be less nimble than other places. There are a lot of very attractive things about state service, notably the benefits, and there are a lot of things that are a little less attractive in a vibrant economy, notably the wages. And so some of that is to be understood. Part of what goes on, though, is that when the vacancy rates are relatively high, is that the people in charge of hiring are the people who aren't getting their work done because they don't have people hired. And when you're not getting your work done because you don't have somebody hired, it's because you're taking on something else, and you don't want to take time out from the work that you're doing because you don't have somebody to hire somebody that you don't have. And it's sort of this vicious circle. In addition to that, there are a bunch of areas. We've heard from a bunch of agencies who've said, we need help recruiting. So the Division of Personnel came up with this plan. We're going to hire 3 people whose job is to do nothing but recruit. And we're going to start by focusing on the places that are particularly hard to hire for. And we hope it's a pilot program, and we hope it's going to work real well.
Further question?
yes, please.
Charlie, I agree with the premise. I think it's a good one, and I'd like to see it work out.
Thank you.
But over the course of these fiscal committee meetings, we have authorized an additional 83 positions. That's so far. And we're authorizing more positions here. When are we going to see the results of the recruitment and retention policies that bring state government to the point where we're actually functioning at I can never believe it's at total capacity.
Sure.
But we're addressing the needs of state government. And I know corrections is here, and I've talked to them. But indeed, if these problems continue, our ability to function is seriously affected, very seriously affected. So something's got to happen, and I hope these things are working. But indeed, as I look at them, I just can't see that positive movement, Charlie, and I hope it occurs.
There's not significant positive movement, and I don't want to pretend that there's going to be dramatic movement in any case. Our task really is to do a lot of little things and to try to improve the situation. State government is always going to be fuller in a bad economy and emptier in a good economy. And that's the nature of the beast. But our task is to work with agencies to help them fill their highest priorities first, and to get there. You know, I mean, I don't know. You know, you think about ARPA and things like that, and there's a lot of construction money floating around. And someone said we should build this and build this and build this, which is all a great idea. And I speak for my department. We're very much in favor of building, because we do buildings, and everything's kind of a mess. But you need people to do it, and you know, somebody's having work done on his or her house. I forgot who. I wasn't paying not paying as much attention as I should have. But you know, we've all experienced that at some point. You want somebody to come fix the steps, and there aren't that many bricklayers around. So we're going to do everything we can to make a difference. This is one thing that's going to make some difference. But agencies, ultimately, it's at agencies, and we need more workers.
Senator Morris?
Charlie, there's a $50 million item that I think you just talked yourself out of that I've been looking at for fixing buildings, so, and I can find a use for it, so don't worry.
Okay.
Can LBA or Charlie tell us what, for 7 months, this 19% vacancy equates to? And then the other end of that question is, because I see it happening every time we come here, how much of that have we transferred into other lines?
I think Charlie can comment on the number of positions that are vacant as far as
I'm looking
how
for
much
the
have been
lapsed
transferred in
dollars.
other lines. That will take some time. We can work with DAS to see what we can find. Anything that's come before you, anything that's gone before GNC with the transfer from state personnel lines, be it to overtime or something else. We'll try to figure out a way to track that.
Yeah, I just bring it up because I know the senators met with corrections. I'm meeting with corrections. 25% vacancy. It's a lot of money. And we're transferring it into overtime, which I understand. We've done this every year I've been here, several times a year. But there's a reality of these dollars. What are they? And I don't think they total the lapse dollars. I think they far exceed it. So as we're swimming in money, and I know the chair from the House and the chair from the Senate are going to caution everybody, stop spending, because I think it's crazy that we're having a second budget year. But I really do think beyond the budget numbers that you've put out in the public, there's a huge lapse here. And just in labor. I mean, and what's happening with that, I think we ought to keep our hands on, because it's real easy to transfer out of the classified lines to somewhere else, and fiscal gets to approve that, and you know, that's fine, but it's spending. And I think we ought to be careful there. So, anyhow, just
I'll
be nice
I'll just
to
note that
understand.
there are a lot of agencies where you can't transfer out of Class 10. There are a few large agencies where you can, but they are the exception, not the rule. So in most cases, for your typical agency, that money is going to have to lapse.
But when you take a department like corrections, that's,
Well, that's
all state funded for the most part, when you transfer that out to overtime lines, it's significant. Number one, I don't know how we ever solve the problem. So we can talk about it till the cows come in. You know, the reality is it's a good starting job. People go in and then they transfer to police departments throughout the state, and you know, we're just keep doing that same game. But I mean, the overtime's significant, and I think if that's how we solve the problem, great, but I'm not sure they agree that that's great. So, but anyhow, there's a lot of money involved here. I think it far exceeds that lapse that you mentioned, Charlie, and that's what I'd like to find out.
I'm going to avoid any comment on corrections.
I'm sure I'll hear about it.
Senator Guida, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, if I heard you correctly, when the economy is good, historically, the state suffers in its employment numbers.
Yeah.
All right. Second thing I think I heard you say was that employees leave because of better wages on the outside, and they come here because of benefits on the inside, so to speak. Correct?
Well, I think our biggest attraction, you know, I've been sitting through, I do all the final interviews in our department lately, and I'd say 50% of the people I talk to, when I said, why are you interested, they say wages. It's particularly true at the lower levels, and it's particularly true of older workers. 25-year-olds tend not to care about wages, and 55-year-olds or benefits, and 55-year-olds do,
So,
for obvious reasons.
so the question is, if we add 3 more personnel, but we haven't changed the environment that produces this shortfall, are we really helping anything?
Well, I don't want to be fatalistic. I think it's it's something to say that, you know, there are times when it's very difficult to hire, but that doesn't mean you don't try. And you know, think of a business trying to work its way through a recession. You know, my mom was in real estate in Detroit during the last couple of recessions, which is sort of a theoretical activity more than an actual one. And you don't stop trying to sell houses. You're going to sell fewer, but if you stop trying, you're going to sell 2. And if you keep trying, you may sell 4 where you wished you sold 8, but you'd rather sell more. So it's one of the things that we do. We try what we can to do to hire, and I think everything we do helps. And in a particularly bad situation, you know, if the vacancy rate were 2%, 3%, and I came to you and said we want to hire recruiters, you should send me off with a flea in my ear. And but it's not. It's you know, 17.8 among classified workers, or whatever the number is. And you should say, you know, what are we doing? And you know, departments say to us all the time, what can you do to help? We need to do something. And so this is something. It's not everything, but it's something.
Senate,
Follow up?
oh, okay. Follow up?
So, final question. So these positions would be utilized to recruit throughout state government? or
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Senator Rosenwald, you had a question?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just curious, given the vacancy rate, that you don't have current office space or furniture, but you have to acquire more?
Well, as a testament to Representative Ober, who I understand isn't here on this committee anymore, but she sort of hounded in us. Anytime you ask for a position, make sure that you ask for everything that goes along with it. In this particular case, there's the vacancy rate at the Division of Personnel is not high. I think it may be close to 0, and so we would need desks in that case. I mean, there are desks in and around state government, although realistically what a lot of agencies do is slowly replace their World War II surplus desks, which I'm fond of, but not everybody is, as they add new positions. So,
Senator Morse?
Well, I just want to put in a plug that you have to get creative, because we approved $15 million to help with DRF beds and building them in Epping. And I know throughout that whole process, we told the hospital they have to bring employees from other parts of the country to get that up and running. That's one of the reasons we put that pitch together. And I think things like that are happening throughout government. And, you know, as we go to the Executive Council with approval on that, there was a lot of thought that went into how do we get a company to come in and bring jobs to New Hampshire to help solve a problem that we know we have. So I think we're doing that. And I think any business is competing with us for 19%. I mean, you know, right now in vacancy rates. And that's no reason to go and do some kind of study to tell me that you have to raise the rates in government because the other side's going to raise their rates right when you do it. So I think there's a balance here. We'll figure it out, but just keep fighting. I mean, I think people want these jobs, and we should just keep promoting them. So,
Senator Daniels?
Thank you. Commissioner, you mentioned that the new positions would focus on 3 particular areas. Could you identify those areas?
I'm going to have to read the item because it's been a while. I mean, the big picture is that, you know, we have issues with, let me back up a step. What we need to focus on is anywhere in state government where we have difficulty hiring people. There's some very obvious ones that people talk about all the time. There are a lot of healthcare professions where we have difficulty maintaining a workforce. There are, I think every fiscal meeting I've been to, somebody's talking about nurses, right? And that's an obvious thing that everyone's aware of. We want to help to the extent that we can in that area. But what we really need to do is to talk to agencies about worker classes where there are large vacancies, and whether or not we can help. There are going to be some areas where someone says, listen, I got an issue with pharmacists and you're not going to help me with that. I have a different plan for that. There's going to be somebody else who says, I have an issue here, you are going to help me with that. So the first thing we're actually going to do, it's not really about specific areas, like we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. It's about identifying the areas where we can add the most value immediately. And the place we start with that is vacancies. And some of them you know about, some of them you don't, right? I have 40% vacancy rate among building service workers, which, I think we're not the only people. We have the most building service workers. A building service worker used to be called cleaners. And they're wonderful people. The last person I talk to every single day is Beth, who cleans the first floor and then some of the annex. And, God bless her, she's been here a long time. But very few people, it's not an attractive job. And exactly how we changed the vacancy rate from 40%, because, the state workforce is a great thing, but it's not a lot to say about cleaning toilets. It's just not the number one on anybody's list. So it's not really about areas, it's about vacancies.
Follow up?
Follow up.
If I recall correctly, I believe in the budget, the House had put in an amendment that said that HHS would have no more than 3,000 positions. Currently, as I look at the vacant positions and the positions, there are currently 3,249 positions. So as you're out there looking for HHS personnel, knowing that you can't go more than 3,000, how do you know where to look? Because you have an excess of
in a case
positions
like that,
right
we work with the agency on their greatest needs and trust them to know. My sense is that the Department of Health and Human Services has a better handle on its budget than I do and can keep me out of trouble.
I guess my point is, you're hiring 3 people to go out and look for specific things. Right now, there appear to be more positions in HHS than were authorized by the legislature. So it would be somebody's duty to instruct these 3 individuals just where they're going to be looking for help.
Well, it's something we would work on frankly, with any department about, what are your needs? Where are you actually going to hire people? And frankly, on some basic level, a department will figure out whether they can or can't in that sense. And I don't want to get into whether they have enough or too many, or that's something I'll promise to talk to Karen about.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions? I do have one. As you know, Mr. Arlinghouse, we had suggested that you try to go out to hire a headhunting firm, if that's the right term. And I believe your answer was you wanted to try this first and then you'd come back to fiscal with a change. So how long are we supposed to let you do this?
Well, I would say, given that bidding and hiring a headhunter firm would take, 3 to 6 months at least, give me 3 months to see if I can hire anybody. If I can't, the distinction, right, is that if I can hire somebody, then we don't need a firm to do this. We don't need to overpay a consultant. If I can't hire anybody, then we might need to overpay a consultant. There are all kinds of problems with having a consultant do this related to access to the system. We can give state employees access to the system in a way that we can't consultants, without jumping through a whole lot of hoops and Dennis Goulet getting mad at us and not letting us do it actually. So I think that ideally we would like to not hire a consultant for this. I think it's tailor-made for people, and my director of personnel tells me that she feels very, very confident that we can hire for this position. And I would anticipate, we would post immediately, and I'll be able to let you know in a month whether we've filled them or not. So that would be my hope. So give me a month or month and a half to hire, and then give me 3 months to tell you if it's working.
Okay, as long as you don't poach from another organization. Okay, you got that?
You
got that?
I can't promise that.
Yeah.
We post a position, people apply, and
Oh,
and
yeah, I
the
know.
13th Amendment prohibits me from telling them they can't.
Yeah, well, filling your position just creates another position if
It's, I mean, I absolutely get that. We have that issue all the time. We hire and oh, they're coming from employment security. And I said that because I'm pretty sure George isn't here, but and they're like, yeah, what am I supposed to do now? And well, you steal somebody from Taylor, and then you just go like that. But there's a lot of churn inside state government, which is actually nice for people. People like to be able to advance within the state. But then we do get a decent number of people coming in from outside too.
Okay. Are there any further questions? Yes, Representative Leishman.
I'll move the item if you're ready, Madam Chair.
I'm ready. Senator Morris seconds. Will the clerk call the roll?
Okay, roll on 081. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Morse,
Yes.
Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald, Senator D'Alessandro,
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
FIS 22081 passes 10-0. We now turn to tab 10. And this is a late item, right? Or not? No. Okay. All right. This is from Safety, FIS 22075, wanting to expend money from prior year carryover forward balance for the 911 system. Are there any questions on this? Seeing none, could I have a motion? Thank you, Senator. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Representative Lynn. Seeing no further discussion, would the clerk call the roll?
Roll call on 075. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman,
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Morse, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald, Senator D'Alessandro, Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you. FIS 22075 passes on a vote of 10-0. Under tab 11, FIS 22-057, transfers from highway surplus account. Are there any questions for DOT? Seeing none, could I have a... Okay, thank you. Senator D'Alessandro, second. Representative Leishman. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call 057. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf,
Yes.
Representative Leishman, Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
Yes.
Senator Morse, Senator Gaida,
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald, Senator D'Alessandro, Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Okay, on a vote of 10-0, FIS 22057 passes. Now turn to tab 12, which is FIS 22-059 for the Judicial Council. Are there any questions on this?
Just a comment, Madam Chair, this goes into Mike's list that he's keeping on how much money the House is spending and how much money the Senate's spending.
Right.
This is a normal process, I get it. I think it's a good process for any conceptual idea that the House is gonna send the Senate on 100 million. But I think it's, we need to keep this in mind, because we do this every year, and it's spending, so we need to understand that.
Thank you, Senator. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, could I have a motion to accept?
Move the item.
Thank you. Seconded by Senator D'Alessandro. You ready? Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 059. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
FIS 22059 passes on a vote of 10-0. Now we turn to tab 13, which is FIS 22060, Department of Corrections, wanting to transfer 7 million plus in general funds among various accounts. Are there any questions?
Move the item.
Yeah, I've met with corrections and I've asked corrections to come up maybe and let's address their situation, because as Senator Morse has pointed out, we've been doing this every year that I've been on the Fiscal Committee for a long period of time. And when you look at the vacancy rate at corrections, the vacancy rate is extremely high. They've used the National Guard in the kitchen to help out, and we have to pay back the National Guard. We're going to use our funds, I think, to pay back $500,000 to the National Guard. The overtime is, as it is here, it's going to reach 15 million, maybe more. I'm not sure. But think about the second year of the biennium if we don't make those two. So, just if I may, a question to the group. I understand you do a magnificent job at maintaining what we have, and I credit you for that. I've been involved with corrections for most of the time I've been in state government. The problem that we face now, I think, is exacerbated because we just can't find people to fill these corrections jobs. The overtime is unbelievable, and where do we go? I mean, there's got to be a solution out there, because look at these transfers. They take place from authorized positions, authorized benefits, and we're moving. So we're always talking about the lapse. Well, there's never any lapse from corrections, right? There's no lapse there, but indeed, this is a problem, a very significant problem that really has to be dealt with.
How can anyone argue with that?
Well, I understand. The argument is, what's the solution?
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
And thank you, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And to the department, you know, what is our game plan here? And I think we've made changes about standards and training, right? In a very quick fashion when it comes to taking these people. So the question is, do we have a game plan going forward that can address this situation?
Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator D'Alessandro, for sharing all of that information. I hope that the committee did receive the activities within the department that we have engaged in over the last several years to be unique and within the authority of law that we have to both recruit and work to retain our employees that we have. In the resource materials that I've sent forward, we were making what I would call strides until COVID-19 hit our institution. And even in the first, what I would call full year, 2020, we did better than I thought we were going to do. I'll tell you that this past second year of working in corrections, changing our mitigation strategies, we lost a lot of tenured people because they were simply tired. And then on top of that, I'll quote your term poaching, we have a unique law enforcement branch of the justice system. Our employees work day in, day out, one-on-one with people with felonies, bottom line. In a very, I'll talk about New Hampshire State Prison for Men, old institution. So when we're training people that their first line of defense are their verbal de-escalation skills, and nationally we're saying that police in the community need to improve their verbal de-escalation skills, the corrections employees with, I'll call it 2-3 years experience are very attractive candidates. And then the commensurate equity in wages, we pay about $10,000 less to a starting corrections officer that's fully certified than they do, and they pay $10,000 more in municipal policing, and a state trooper and the state troopers are struggling as well to recruit people, are waiving a lot of their, I'll defer to them, but in the discussions I've had with them, waiving some of their minimum qualifications for physically able, psychologically screened candidates. So law enforcement in general has faced a hit. So when we look at corrections, and I thank the legislature for letting us use the transfer strategy of using vacancies, because it is the vacancies that are resulting in the overtime to move to overtime, because it sends a message to the people working in corrections today that none of us have given up to provide them the resources they need not to work the intense overtime hours. And the last 2 years, COVID-19 has been the reason we've leaned on the National Guard, because on top of the vacancies, people were legitimately sick. And so I had individuals who were corrections officers out of the work environment to the tune of maybe 45 or more in a day on top of our vacancies, just fully exacerbated the situation. So part of what we've done uniquely is we literally started an Introductions to Corrections course at the Berlin High School. We had 7 participants in the first class, and now we've had a maximum capacity in the second class we're offering. So we're going to look to teaching people what corrections literally is, that we're not guards, we're not watching that table, we're correcting people and changing a pattern of behavior. We are one-on-one working with individuals who have committed, in many instances, egregious crimes and are also struggling with mental health and substance use disorder, and they need the support of strong people day in and day out to correct patterns of behavior. So I thank you for asking that question. I think it's important that this is a profession worth continuing to fight for, but there are some equities that the agency's trying to resolve, and we will need the legislators' support so that we're not training fully qualified people who are literally going to another branch of state government to make $10,000 more money.
Thank you. Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner, good to see you.
Nice to see you too.
When a corrections officer, newly trained, comes out of the police academy, comes over to you, is there any contractual requirement that they remain for a period of time? And is that a possibility that could be implemented? I don't know contracts and so forth.
Senator Gaida, that's a great question. There's no contractual relationship there like any other state employee. As you heard Commissioner Arlinghouse, someone can recruit them for another opportunity that they certify for. I will tell you, I've seen a few other states that do require, I'll call it a tenure in corrections before they can go work in a certified police occupation. And I think I would have my other law enforcement partners telling you, don't do that to me. But that's been some of the strategies that have been discussed.
Follow up.
Regardless of the other law enforcement agencies, we're here to deal with corrections problems. And so would this be something that would be implementable under your leadership?
Senator Gaida, I think we would have to put forward a legislative change and see what the palette of the legislature was. But I think it's possible.
Are there any further questions? Yes, Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And thanks, Commissioner. Good to see you. Just a follow-up to Representative Gaida's question. We've heard of industry providing some sort of help towards education, like a financial benefit, and then that individual has to sign some kind of an agreement with that employer to stay for a certain period of time. Would that be something worth the legislature looking at?
Representative Leishman, I think that's an excellent question again. I had suggested, again, talking about state employee vacancies before bargaining, they had asked me, what do you think, Commissioner? And I said, well, what I'm hearing from my staff is if we did something in the education realm, that people would stay on longer, but they're going and advancing their career someplace else. So it's another, I'll call it carrot or attraction to come work for corrections or state.
Are there any further questions? I have one. Is the vacancy rate higher at the men's prison than the women's prison?
As of today, Madam Chair, I think they're almost equitable. I'll tell you that since submitting the information, our security vacancy rate is 33%. That's the highest I've ever seen it. Yeah. And we have some promising new candidates coming, but it's, again, with that type of vacancy rate, we're going to take a long time to play catch up.
Okay, thank you.
And I do want to give one shout out, Senator Morris. I have not come back for more medical money in several years. Thank you. It's not a promise, but I do want to recognize that.
Yes, that.
Madam Chair, that's because of the terrific job she did when we were doing the budget, when we talked about dealing with medical costs, how we could reduce medical costs. So I give her kudos for that. We gave her an assignment when the Finance Committee was meeting, and she fulfilled it. So where's Charlie Allinghouse? We ought to give a bonus on that one.
I'm not quitting on this one either.
So, Senator D'Alessandro, is that a motion to approve? Thank you.
ma'am.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Gaida. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 060. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
Yes.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
A vote of 10-0, FIS 22-060 passes. Okay, we now turn to tab 14. And these are the late items. FIS 22082 is a request from the Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please? Thank you, Senator Rosenwald and Senator D'Alessandro. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 082. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn. Yes. Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro. Yes. Senator Representative Umberger. I was on a roll.
Yeah, I could tell. I'll vote yes, thank you.
Madam Chair, the vote is 10-0.
Thank you. FIS 22082 passes on a vote of 10-0. We now turn to FIS 22083, and this is a request from the Department of Health and Human Services. Are there any questions? Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
Good morning, for the record, Karen Rounds.
Thanks, Karen. Good to see you.
You as well.
The request you have for 6 positions. Now, when you folks appeared before us, I believe back in October on the 22nd, you mentioned that in all likelihood, the services to run Hampstead would be contracted.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little surprised to see the number of positions and the cost for the positions in this request. Could you explain the need now? In the response that you provided to some of our questions, you did say it was going to be similar to the existing state hospital contract. So could you explain how those two line up?
Sure. So I believe that the commissioner did testify that it was always our intention to keep senior leadership as state employees. It offers the state a lot more control over the facility to have the senior leadership be state employees. The salary levels are in line with the salaries that are paid to current New Hampshire hospital executives and department executives. So that is where those salary amounts are coming from. There is legislation in place to create unclassified positions. And those unclassified positions will go through the Corn Ferry process to receive the final salaries. So these positions are essentially temporary so that we can hire the people into them, and then they will be transferred to permanent unclassified positions later. The other piece which I mentioned I meant to mention in my answer, I may have forgotten. The revenue cycle team will also be state employees, but those will be classified employees. So you will see those come through in the operating budget when I bring that forward to the committee. Revenue cycle being the employees that are working with the insurance companies, collecting the funds and depositing them, because those revenues will be state revenues. So there is a handful of state employees that will be part of operating Hampstead.
Further question, Madam Chair.
Yes.
So I went back and looked at the minutes from the October 22nd meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to read a portion. I believe this was Commissioner Shibinette's response to Representative Edwards' concern about the staffing issue of the hospital. So she goes on to say, due to some staffing issues, they have not been able to expand their services, meaning Hampstead Hospital, I assume.
Yes.
Our goal is, again, to purchase Hampstead and contract with a third party to assist in running it. So I guess I'm concerned with the number of positions you're requesting. I could see like a contract officer, someone to oversee the running, but 6 positions, which include senior management, to run a facility that right now has only 45 individuals under their care.
So I think that, not to be nuanced, but her response was assist in running the facility. So I think that may not have been the most direct way to say that there would be state employees there, but I don't think that ruled out that there would be state employees there. I think as far as the number of beds, we've made it very clear that our intent is to expand the number of beds as quickly as we possibly can. And this is a 24-hour facility, so it certainly requires a number of executives. It's right now a tens of millions of dollars business, so it requires a CFO, it requires accounting staff. I think that these positions are absolutely required to run this facility.
I don't have any further, Madam Chair, but thank you.
Are there, Senator Rosenwald?
Thank you. We got a report from Administrative Services about the vacancy rates, and New Hampshire Hospital has a 26% vacancy rate, the bulk of which are over 90 days vacant. So how realistic is it that you can hire all the staff you're going to need for Hampstead when we haven't been able to at the state hospital?
Yes, thank you so much for the question, Senator. My name is Marissa Henn. I'm an associate commissioner. And I think one of the things that's important to consider here is how much of a transformation is really occurring at Hampstead. This is not, Hampstead has served a critical role in partnership with the state in caring for children. It has done a fantastic job. The future is going to be so much more comprehensive in terms of what we will be able to offer youth, adolescents across the state, including standing up the first ever psychiatric residential treatment facility, filling a huge gap in the continuum of services. So it's not going to be easy. Hiring is not easy right now, but what we believe is that this will be an attractive place for people to come work, because they will be part of what the governor himself has said is, and the commissioner as well, is really a state-of-the-art center of excellence ultimately. And so I think that's part of it, is attracting people based on the ways in which this is this is a change in status quo and a part of our larger transformation. I think the second thing is that bringing in a vendor who has the capabilities, the recruitment skills, the national linkages even, to be able to attract people in a way that has not been possible previously. We're seeing that right now with the temporary staff that you all approve funding for. That has not been easy to bring in that strike team to Hampstead, but we're doing it. We're effectively opening more beds the last several weeks, thanks to the ability of a national vendor to extend its reach in bringing people to the state.
Are there further questions? Senator Morse?
Just to be clear, we're going to create a management team and we're hiring a vendor.
Correct. But these positions will not be duplicated by the vendor.
Representative Lynn?
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit confused. I wonder if you could just explain for us the analogy. I think you said at the beginning in response to Representative Leachman's question, you drew an analogy to the state hospital. So I wonder if you could you just explain, for example, how many in the top management of the state hospital, how many of those people are state employees, and then what percentage of the people under them are not state employees, and compare that or contrast that with what you envision for Hampstead Hospital.
So it's definitely not a perfect comparison for a number of reasons, but the executive team is similar at New Hampshire Hospital. There's a CEO, there's a COO, there's a CFO. All of those things exist at New Hampshire Hospital, and they are state employees. They are unclassified state employees. The staff at New Hampshire Hospital, there of course is the contract with Dartmouth that provides some of the clinical staff, but many of the nurses at New Hampshire Hospital are state employees. With the contract at Hampstead, we anticipate that all of the nursing staff will be contracted through the contractor. So there are definitely less anticipated state employees at Hampstead percentage-wise than there are at New Hampshire Hospital.
Okay. Follow up? And can I just ask, is there a plan sort of for over the longer term that as people that are now contracted or people that are envisioned to be contracted employees at Hampstead Hospital, as they sort of turn over, that those people would be replaced with state employees?
No, so right now, and the commissioner has informed GMC of this as well. Our plan is to bring forward a contract, a 2-year contract that will be sole source, because we need to move so quickly as we close on this facility. During those 2 years, we will evaluate what the best model will be and have time to issue an RFP and all of those things. So it won't happen rolling throughout those 2 years. When we get through those 2 years, there will be a new, a new model, or the current model will continue.
Thank you.
Senator Daniels?
Thank you. Is it your intent that the executive team that you hire is going to be an ongoing operating cost?
Yes.
Okay. Follow up? Yet your request is that you're going to be using ARPA funds, which are one-time funds.
Yes.
Do you find that a prudent way to use one-time money for ongoing cost?
So I think that some of this is one-time in the sense that we may hire them, just prior to acquisition. We know that the purchase and sales is in place. We may want to get some of those people on board and moving things along as we come to closer to close. And we will be presenting an operating budget that will fund those positions as unclassified positions. And also will likely use ARPA funds unless there was a bill in the legislature to appropriate general funds. So I think that the operating budget potentially does include some small amount of operating funds until we move into the budgeting process for, I always have to think of the fiscal years in my head. We're currently in 22, 23, so 24, 25.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there further questions? Senator Gaida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Karen. So if I'm hearing correctly, we're establishing a management team that is unclassified.
Yes.
For the indefinite future of the hospital. and that the vendor to whom we refer is basically an employment agency that will provide the staff. Would that be an appropriate characterization?
I don't think that that's the right characterization. The vendor certainly will be doing daily operating of the hospital as well. They will just be doing it in conjunction with the management team. So it's not like they're just providing a staff and these people will supervise all of them. It's not quite like that. There will certainly be supervisors within the contracting, within the contractor that's managing the hospital as well. It's just with the oversight of this team.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Yeah, may I just?
Yes.
Can you give, I mean, this, I have to say, this seems like a really strange, for lack of a better term, way to operate this, in the sense that I mean, I guess I could see real potential for conflict between these sort of chiefs, very high level people that you're proposing to hire that are employees of the state, and then the rest of the universe of employees being subject to a contract, that there would be great potential for conflicts between the state employee directors and the people that are under contract. And I'm wondering if you could just give us some examples? And it sounds like from what you said earlier that the state hospital really is a different, you may have a few the contract with Dartmouth, et cetera, but most of the the lower level employees there are state employees. So I'm wondering if you could give us an example of other places in state government that are operated like this, where there's the top people are sort of state employees, and then everybody else is kind of independent contractors are subject to a contract.
So I'm going to back up and I'll answer your question along the way to give you some perspective on why we're structuring it this way. The state hospital New Hampshire Hospital has very much a blended management team. We have many senior executives, but like the chief medical officer, the chief quality officer, both are Dartmouth employees, along with multiple others. And we blend those two leadership teams together to provide operational excellence at New Hampshire Hospital. The reason for having a leadership team at Hampstead Hospital is because there is a need to have accountability to more than just that physical hospital. That hospital is one part of a children's system of care. So the kids sitting in emergency rooms, the kids waiting for residential placement, all of the kids that are within the children's system of care is linked to the state's children's system of care, which is why we want state employees leading that hospital, so that the strategy is not just about operating that 70 or 80 beds. The strategy of that hospital is how it impacts the entire children's system of care. So the CEO, the COO, the CFO, those are strategy positions. The day-to-day operations, the third-party contractor will have a hospital administrator there who links and blends with this leadership team, but the leadership team is a strategy team. The CEO, the COO, that's the role that they play in any hospital management team. Their strategy is to create a campus of excellence, a center of excellence, to link with the entire system of care for children's behavioral health. We're going to try this for 2 years. If we, in the next 2 years, find that there are certain positions that should be contracted and not state employees, then we will do the RFP that way. What we do know is the finance team will never be contracted. There is no private entity in this state or nationally that could figure out state financing. It has to be state employees, right? So when you pull the finance part out, you have the CEO, the COO, compliance officer, because it's a state-owned building and we need to maintain Joint Commission compliance in order to continue to bill. General counsel, again, same with finance, the legal system within state government needs to be state employees. So in any other contract, we also see this type of structure in some of our IT departments when it comes to MMIS and bridges, where we have Deloitte being a main contractor, having a lot of the frontline employees, and then having state employees supplementing it. We see that in other areas. So it's not completely unheard of.
Thank you.
Others, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, I've been supportive of the state acquiring Hampstead, but my understanding, I think, like some other people's, was that after the very short term, we were looking at hiring state employees like we do at New Hampshire Hospital and Glencliff, for example. Does this mean that the department might consider changing Glencliff, for example, from a state employee-driven workforce to outside vendors? I'm not sure why the state would want to own it if we don't want to run it with our own people that we hire and train and
because we
can
can't,
count on.
we're not market rate with our wages. So one of the reasons why Commissioner Erlinghaus is here in front of you asking for recruiters is our wage scale does not allow us to recruit people at the level of skill that we need. And I mean, that is why New Hampshire Hospital has a 38% vacancy rate for nurses right now. It's why Glencliff is running at about 80 out of 120 for a census, because we can't attract staff up there. Our wages are just not competitive. A third party can pay wages that are competitive with the marketplace. So it makes sense for Hampstead going into a new contract that they absorb the direct care workers, the nurses, the social workers, the mental health counselors under their contract so that they can pay a competitive wage. Do I think that the state at some point could fix the wage scale to pay a competitive wage? Yes, but I think that is a very long process. I think that's going to take years, and we are going to be running Hampstead in the next 3 months.
Follow up, please.
Follow up.
But so on top of the competitive wages that the outside vendor has to pay, they're presumably going to want to make some profit as well. Should we not expect that that model is going to be more expensive down the road than having a state-owned and operated facility?
No, I would say that if you look at New Hampshire Hospital and Glencliff and you compare it to comparative facilities, New Hampshire Hospital to other hospitals, Glencliff to other nursing homes, that they're probably some of the most expensive facilities to run because of the cost of state employee benefits, overall state run. I would say that it costs more to run a state-run hospital or a state-run nursing home than a private nursing home or a private hospital.
Thank you.
Are there further questions? Representative Leishman?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And this question is as a result of your response to Senator Rosenwald. Now, you said there's a 33% vacancy rate at New Hampshire Hospital. How is a contractor coming in that, as Representative Rosenwald pointed out, will need a profit? How are they going to find a competitive or a good workforce if they've got to provide a profit and provide such a rate or contract with you that's competitive?
They are hiring the current staff at Hampstead and increasing their wages to be competitive. So there's that. So Hampstead is staffed to run 45-bed hospital right now. So they will be offering employment to all of those staff. So their current staff. They also have national connections where they can recruit out of state and bring in state, which is what we're wanting them to do. We plan to increase the capacity at Hampstead slowly, but over the next 2 years, to include a PRTF, to include other acute units. They have a 12-bed adult unit now. They have the remaining beds being children, but they were also running an IOP, intensive outpatient program, a partial program, and other programs that we may or may not continue to run. And then we would absorb those staff into the rest of the hospital beds. We really need to get in and evaluate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions? Okay, I do have one. I assume that currently Hempstead Hospital has all of these people. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't say all of them, but several of them, and several of them are candidates to come over to be state employees.
I mean, they may not have a contract manager. I get that.
No, but several people on their leadership team has expressed interest in coming into these created state positions.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'll move to table.
Representative Leishman moves to table FIS 22083. Do I have a second?
Second.
Senator Daniels seconds. Will the clerk call the roll? Yep. No, it's no problem.
Roll call to table 083. Clerk votes no. Representative Erf.
No.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn.
No.
Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. No. Senator Gaida.
No.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator D'Alessandro. No. Representative Umberger.
No.
Madam Chair, the vote is 2 yes and 8 no on tabling.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
The vote to table fails on a 2 in favor and 8 opposed. Senator Morse.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'm going to move the item, but I'm also going to caution everybody. We need to know more what's going on that campus. I think we need to understand where we're headed here as a state. I'll move the item because I think the operational side I understand already, but I think before we go any further with where we're taking plans in the state, I think the fiscal needs to understand that, and especially if this is going to be decisions made when we get out of here in May. I think we need to set some kind of system up where fiscal's being briefed on it. So I move the item.
I would second, but may I also make a comment just to
Of course.
sort of follow up on what Senator Moore said? I guess the one thing that led me to vote not to table was your statement that we're going to sort of see how this goes for a couple of years, and if we have to make some changes. I think that's very important that happen, and I guess I'm sort of inclined to defer to what you say. You are sort of the experts in this area. I'm sort of inclined to defer, but I'm not sure, candidly, that I've gotten a really satisfactory explanation for why it wouldn't be appropriate to just have, one contract administrator for this operation, and everyone else be subject to a contract administrator that's a state employee, and everyone else be subject to the contract, and presume, you say you want to make sure that people are all sort of on board following the state's plan, and all of that makes perfect sense to me, but why couldn't a contract administrator ensure that all the people that are working under the contract are on the same page, so to speak? So, as I say, maybe there are reasons why it makes more sense to do this. I'm willing to defer, but I sort of share the same concerns that Senator Morse has. Thank you.
Okay. Is there further discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Senator Gaida.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would echo Representative Lynn's comments. I've had some experience with federal contracts, multi-billion-dollar contracts, under the auspices of a single contract administrator with very, very clearly defined and omnipotent authority to challenge any deficiencies or potential defects in performance. And so rather than establishing an entire staff, I'd like to look towards a contract administrator model. And given credence, of course, to your comments that we have 3 months to get this done.
Representative Emmerich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that's come out of several different dialogues we've had this morning indicates that we're understaffed. And I think we don't really have an opportunity loss or an opportunity cost associated with vacancies. You highlighted that in the New Hampshire hospital, you can only have so many beds because you just can't staff it. So what that's saying is we're not fulfilling our mission as a state because we can't get, and I'm not looking at you and saying you're doing a bad job. I'm saying you've highlighted a reality that if we don't do something about staffing, we are going to be deficient as a state fulfilling our mission to our citizens. So I'm just throwing that out there as a rhetorical comment, not directed necessarily at you, but just at all of the vacancies that we're talking about. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for that comment, and I'd like to point out that every program that the department oversees, whether it's state employee run or not, is having workforce issues. So every program we want to put forward, we can have the best ideas on how to solve the substance use disorder crisis, the mental health crisis. But if our partners in the community also cannot hire people, then it sets us up for failure. So it really is a workforce issue across the state. And in some areas, it is the type of work we do when it's mental health and substance use or the high clinical licensure required. And in some cases, for the state employees, it's things like wages. So I think every employer has different challenges.
Commissioner, you mentioned you're going to be in 3 months operating, which that's good news. So that means your deal's going to be signed. At that point, will you have the ability to talk to us about this concept that you're working on?
Yes, so we're expecting our close date for Hampstead Hospital to be April, May, and then a third party to come in right after that, along with this team, to operate the hospital for the next 2 years. This summer, we will enter into drafting an RFP for long-term how the hospital would be run. We will take what we learn from the next year or so of operations and incorporate that into the RFP for going forward. But right now, it's the short term, right? We don't have the luxury of time to really sit down and make a decision. Who's the contract administrator would be a great example, because the decisions made in a hospital are very clinical decisions. So does our contract administrator need to be a doctor, a psychiatrist, a nurse, a business person? All of those things need to be fettered out over the next several months, and then will be in the RFP. Once we're running the hospital, when we talk about what's our plan for the campus of excellence or the center of excellence, what else is going to happen at Hampstead Hospital as we build out the beds, I think there is the opportunity to have a larger discussion about that spring into summer, for sure.
Which is where I think the legislature needs to weigh in, because we're talking about a campus, and those ideas I don't think have been vetted with the legislature right now. I think it would be beneficial in May, because we'll be leaving right after that, to come back and have a larger discussion about this.
Sure.
You'll certainly be on the operational phase by then. And I think one point, and this is in your favor, that I think overall what we've been trying to do, and I gave it a plug a little while ago, but I'll give it again. We are going to a company that can bring employees into New Hampshire. When we looked at Epping, we were going to an employee that could bring people into New Hampshire. We're not going to solve this unless we get creative like that, and I think that's an important part of this. I think it's a little surprise on the management side But that's why maybe if you get in there in May, we can go through all this.
Yeah, I think we've made the determination, at the department that solving several of the issues, workforce included, mental health, substance abuse, is going to take public-private partnerships. And that's what this is. That's what the Epping project is. It's really that public-private so that we have leverage on how our system, our overall system operates and how that one piece fits into our system. But on the private side, they get to pay the wages and have more operational efficiency than a state-run facility.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments? Yes, Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and I see Senator Moore staring at me, so I'll keep it short. So I'm concerned, like Senator Morse, about the cost and the long-term implication on the state. ARPA funds, we're using $1.7 million for these 6 positions out of the $15 million that we took back in October. This money's going to run out, and this is going to be a state responsibility, and I'm very concerned that we have absolutely no idea of the cost and the amount of people necessary to run this position. And I will support Senator Morse's motion, but I'm, like others, very concerned. We have not seen the information I think we need to see moving forward. Thanks.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Senator Morse.
Yeah, and I'm well aware of what we left on the balance on the 15 million, so I thought about that before I looked at this. But I think the reality is if you look at Hampstead Hospital, and this is why we should talk about this in May, they're not just serving New Hampshire right now. They have clients outside of our state, and they're billing. So you're creating a system here, and I guess that's what I want to see what the intent is. If that's a for-profit setup, the state's managing the for-profit business, there's a lot to look at there. I mean, what are we currently writing to Hampstead Hospital as a state? Did we fund them at all? And then what's the income going to be on if you take it from 50 beds and turn it into 75 and then other services, So I think there's a lot to look at in that whole concept thing. It could all be very good, to be honest with you. But I also want to understand what else is going to happen, so.
Thank you.
Are there any further comments?
Yeah, I would just comment on Senator's statement, because I think it's looking like a business enterprise, like the Liquor Commission, to some extent. And I'm not trying to equate the two. I'm just saying as a business enterprise, it may be a better structure than trying to take the state structure and the contract structure and work it together. Just say, okay, it does its own thing, so to speak, and makes its own profit and pays its own wages.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it provides an opportunity for the state. I think it provides an opportunity. And we did this once before when we deinstitutionalized. It created an opportunity. It was okay when it started, and then we let up on it and didn't fulfill our obligations. This is an opportunity. We currently have a contract with Hampstead Hospital. How many beds have we contracted for now?
We don't have a certain number of beds, but we're contracted to provide all children behavioral health inpatient services.
Right. So we have a contract that exists now. So we have an opportunity here to provide a desperately needed system and to do it properly. And I think coming back and letting us know what the final operation looks like is very important. I've been down this road before. I was here, and I saw success and then failure. Now I'd like to see success and success.
Okay, are there any other comments? Seeing none, will the clerk call the roll?
Roll call on 083. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf?
Yes.
Representative Leishman?
Yes.
Representative Lynn?
Yes.
Senator Daniels?
No.
Senator Morse?
Yes.
Senator Gaida?
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald?
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro?
Yes.
Representative Umberger?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-1.
FIS 22083 passes on a vote of 9-1. We now move to FIS 22084, which is in the same tab. This is authorize HHS to accept and expend $300,300 in rescue money. And this is for wage enhancements for licensed nursing assistants at Glencliff Home. Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I notice this is a 16-week wage enhancement. Do you expect to be back after that to request more funding for this program?
Good morning. For the record, my name is Joe Christie. I'm the CFO for New Hampshire Hospital in Glencliff. We made it a 16-week program, or I guess by way of background. So in the fall, most nursing homes received a portion of funding, ARPA funding, and a lot of them have used that for similar kind of wage enhancement programs. Glencliff was not a part of that at that time, but we did approach Gopher to request the additional funding. And so what we were provided, or assuming it passes today, what we will be provided is the dollar amount that was equal per, I believe it was bed, as any other nursing home facility in the state. So to try to structure, knowing that we have kind of that finite amount of money, to try to structure something that was meaningful to our LNAs to try to stabilize our staffing, we identified a 16-week program would allow us to pay a rate that would be meaningful for those individuals. So that's kind of how we got to the 16-week time frame. We are hopeful that that 16 weeks will carry us into the summer where COVID, we have seen, eases up a little bit, and we're hopeful that that helps with some of our staff satisfaction and kind of workload that they're carrying today.
Are there further questions? Senator Gaida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you comment on the census at Glencliff as opposed to its full capacity?
Thanks. We're running right around 80 right now, between 75 and 80. Total capacity is 119, so running quite a bit below capacity for a variety of reasons. We have leaned on our other nursing homes to take people with mental illness into their communities. We don't believe that the elderly that suffer mental illness need to go to Warren, New Hampshire to get services. We believe that they should be able to get services in any nursing home across the state. So we have been working with nursing homes to open up additional behavioral health beds in local nursing homes. In addition to that, the staffing issue has created an issue for maintaining it at full census. So dropping it down to a point where we could close off a unit and reallocate those staff, basically use them more efficiently.
Further questions?
Follow up. Thank you. Commissioner, so safe to say that the decreased census is due to the shortage of personnel? Primarily.
It is both. It is both the shortage of personnel, and it is our attempts to move people with mental illness that are seniors into the community, for sure. This enhancement itself just equalizes the playing field. We've given this money to every other nursing home in the state to enhance wages for their employees. Glencliff was not given the same enhancement as nursing homes, so all of the nursing homes around Glencliff are pulling their staff from them because they're offering incentives that we weren't able to offer.
Further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion, please?
Move the item.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro.
Second.
Seconded by Senator Gaida. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call on 084. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf?
Yes.
Representative Leishman?
Yes.
Representative Lynn,
Yes.
Senator Daniels,
No?
Senator Morse. Senator Gaida.
Yes.
Senator Rosenwald. Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-1.
The vote on FIS 22-084 is 9 in favor, 1 opposed. It passes. We now turn to FIS 22-086, and this is the Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery, authorization to accept and expend $30,032,503 in federal in ARPA money for rental assistance. Are there any? Yes, Senator Morris.
Yeah, is this direct money from Washington on the rental assistance? I guess my bigger question is, it's not part of the 990?
No.
Okay.
No, Senator. Taylor Caswell again. No, this is under the Emergency Rental Relief Program. It's separate from the Fiscal Recovery Fund.
Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Senator D'Alessandro.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There have been some real concerns about how quickly this is getting out, and I know people are working overtime, double time to get it out. Taylor, what is the main problem? Is it the paperwork? Is it that what it is? There's a paper log jam in terms of it. I know that the community action programs are basically given the responsibility of moving this stuff out the door, and they've done a pretty good job. But what is the basic problem?
Yeah, Senator, all your points are well taken. We've been reducing. New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority has really been sort of spearheading this effort with the CAPS. It's a very hand-holding sort of experience that you have to get through for each applicant in order to get through the eligibility component and then get the money to them. The time that it takes for them to process this entire process has been going down as we've gone along here. As far as the specific, exact reasons why, I can't really speak to that specifically, but we do watch that category from the gopher side. I would say broadly, though, the funding that we're talking about here is a late item because we only got this resource dropped into the state accounts last Friday. So we want to move that over to them so that that's not standing in the way of any further delays that you're referring to.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Rosenwald.
Thank you. How many families are you participating? This $30 million is going to help, and for how long? What kind of scope?
Overall, at this point, if you take both ERA 1 and ERA 2, there have been a little over 13,000 households that have been assisted thus far, and the average amount of that assistance is just under $8,000. So that's the scope. This continues the pace of that program.
Representative Leachman.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Nice to see you, Commissioner. I guess I could call you the ARPA czar, perhaps. Could you?
Please don't.
Could you tell us, we see these requests coming in. You just mentioned this came in like last Friday or whatever. Is there more out there, or is this getting close to that's it?
There's still more left. Yeah, so we expect to have the ability to see another tranche of funding under this particular program sometime in the next couple of resources in order to continue to see the funding hit our accounts. But once it does hit our accounts, we amend the contract and then send that money over to NIFA and have them continue to run the program.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there further questions? Seeing none, could I have a motion? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Gaida. Excuse me.
Thank you. Can you comment on the eligibility requirements to participate in this? Or maybe Ben might be able to better do, I don't know.
For the rental program?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, if Ben wants to talk, or Rob wants to talk a little bit to that, they could probably give you more detail than I can. Do you want to? Sure, come on up.
Good afternoon, Senator. Thank you for the question. For the record, my name is Rob Dappas. I'm the Executive Director of New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority. So the Emergency Rental Assistance Program was established by Congress with income and eligibility limits. The income limit is 80% of area median income for where the applicant resides. And then there are also eligibility requirements associated with the hardship that the applicant must have experienced during the COVID period. And the eligibility, the hardship, the specifics of that hardship requirement are a little bit different between ERA 1 and ERA 2. This funding request is for the ERA 2 funds, which are a little bit more flexible. Somebody must have experienced a significant loss of income or increase in expenses during the period of the COVID pandemic.
Do you have a follow-up?
Thank you. So my presumption is then that they would have to provide some evidence of COVID causation to be eligible. We're not just distributing money to people that want it.
So that was a specific requirement of ERA 1, was that there be a COVID, a direct relationship between the COVID pandemic and the hardship that the person experienced. It's not quite as direct a relationship that's required under ERA 2, and so somebody has to self-attest that they experienced a hardship, but they don't have to necessarily draw the connection between the COVID pandemic. In a lot of cases, this is related to something like increased household costs associated with increased gas prices or food, heating, utility prices, and things like that.
Anybody can get it.
As long as you're on the income eligibility.
Right. I do have a question.
Okay, Representative Emmerich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You dropped a number out there of 13,000 are currently in the program or have taken advantage of the program.
13,000 households that have been assisted or are currently being assisted.
That's 1% of the population.
So it's households as opposed to individuals.
So it's even greater.
That's right.
Wow, okay. That was, how many, do you have a backlog?
So there are several thousand applications that are currently pending that the CAP agencies have received that they haven't completed processing and determined their eligibility. That's about 4,700 applications at the present time. Now, some of those are applications from households that have already been assisted. So it's not necessarily another 5,000 households that are going to be assisted because you can only apply for a certain amount of assistance at a time.
So, follow up? So using Kentucky windage of how many individuals per household, blah, 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 we could be talking about 3% of the population. 3% of the households of the state. I'm not trying to pin you down. I'm just saying this is a bigger number than I had envisioned or I could anticipate.
Yes, I think it's certainly more than 1%, and it may be as high as 3% of the population that's been assisted in some way through this program.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And this is just rental assistance, correct? This is not mortgage assistance.
It is not mortgage assistance. It's rental assistance and utilities and associated costs.
Wow. Okay.
Senator Gaida?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Did this program exist pre-pandemic?
No.
No. Are there any further questions? Thank you. Could I have a motion, please?
I would move the item.
Thank you, Senator D'Alessandro. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Representative Emmerich, seconds. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call 086. Clerk votes yes. Representative Erf.
Yes.
Representative Leishman.
Yes.
Representative Lynn. Yes. Senator Daniels.
Yes.
Senator Morse. Yes. Senator Gaida. Senator Rosenwald.
Yes.
Senator D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Representative Umberger.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote is 9-1.
Thank you. FIS 22086 passes on a vote of 9-1. Thank you very much. Commissioner Caswell, we're not letting you go. Okay?
I wasn't trying to sneak out.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that. We had asked the commissioner to come to us with to provide a CARES funding update, which we got this morning, and we thank you for that. And next month he will be here to talk about where we stand on ARPA money. So I will turn it over to you.
Certainly. Happy to do it, and thank you, Madam Chairwoman. So I wanted to walk through a couple of things with regard to the background of CARES Act. You should have documents in front of you that give you the outline of the programs that were included under CARES Act. So a couple of things. I'm going to talk about sort of the background of this, the usage that we saw as a result of the programming, a little bit about how we run the process or how we ran those programs at Gopher, and then just sort of where we are with CARES right now. So if you go all the way back to March 13th of 2020, that's when the governor declared a state of emergency, and the CARES Act was actually signed into law shortly thereafter on, I believe it was March 27th. We established Gopher on April 14th of 2020, and immediately those resources started coming to the state, and a number of programs were designed, initiated, and executed and deployed pretty quickly, because we had the Main Street Relief Fund, which was our first program that was designed to assist small businesses around the state. That launched on May 15th of 2020, and in the end that fund ended up providing resources to the tune of around $400 million to state employers. Subsequently, by July 17th, almost $1 billion worth of that CARES Act funding that we had received was obligated and started to move out the door pretty quickly. And this was very much by design at the time. We wanted to make sure that these immediate relief funds were treated as such and were out to the people that needed it as quickly as we could get it. I do think it's worth noting as well that the speed to which we were able to move those funds enabled a lot of businesses to keep their doors open, a lot of people to stay employed through some of the depth of the pandemic in the summer and fall of 2020, and did line us up quite nicely as we started to see our unemployment rate go from 16% at the height right down into 3% in January and February of 2021. And that was at a pace that exceeded other states in this part of the country. If we look then continuing on, we had the original deadline for CARES Act, as you will recall, was December of 2020. On December 27th of 2020, the federal government changed the deadline and pushed it out for a year, which did throw a couple of programs into, it enabled us to extend the life of several programs and to recycle some of those resources over the course of 2021. In June 2021, the state of emergency expired, and then we went on from there. I would say in between there, I would note as well, there was in the April timeframe, we did require those businesses that had received Main Street funds to submit their reports to us and to DRA, at which time we were also told that some of those funds, if they were not directly attributable to revenue losses during that period of time, that there would be a need to recoup some of those funds from those businesses. At which point that we launched a new program that allowed businesses to take COVID-related expenses from 2021 and apply them to the potential recoupment amount that they were facing under that provision, and subsequently reduced the recoupment load pretty significantly for businesses around the state. I would add that we additionally added a program near the end of 2021 that further gave further opportunity for businesses to reduce that amount by with a COVID expense program that allowed them to be reimbursed for COVID-related expenses for almost the entire year of 2021. So that extension of time that we had experienced in December of 2020 really did allow us to go back and make sure that we recycled those funds back into the businesses that need it. Just in general, of course, the total amount that we were provided by the feds under CARES Act was $1.25 billion. At this point, we have expended and obligated $1.18 billion. We fully expect by the time that we're done with the program later this fall that we will have expended every cent of that $1.25 billion. Over the course of the life of CARES Act, there were around 70 individual relief programs that were initiated and over 15,000 recipients of funding under the program. And as I pointed out, a good portion of that, roughly about half of those funds, were related to employer relief. And I would point out that the employer relief component of that was not exclusively for profits. We also provided a number of programs for nonprofit employers, including a program called the NERF program that I think totaled around $41 million. That was basically a copy of the Main Street program that allowed those nonprofits to also benefit as employers from those resources. We also had programs for hotels and for lodging operations, performing arts, and restaurants as we went through that process. The second largest component of resources, if you take them in big buckets, was really in the healthcare space. All total under CARES Act, that was around $236 million. Those were for things like hospital support, direct hospital support, long-term care facilities and stabilization, mental health facilities, and substance use disorder programming. I wanted to spend just a quick moment on how this process sort of operated behind the scenes, because it is one thing to be able to get the funding approved and to move forward. It's another thing to operationalize this number of programs. While I came to Gopher in September of 2021, there was a lot of action that had already taken place under Jerry Little's role in the same role that I had in the staff, some of whom are still with us on the Gopher side, put in extremely long hours in getting these programs up and running. We would go through a whole process of making sure that everything that we were proposing, all of the provisions of the program, met the eligibility requirements of CARES Act. We would have to go through a process, just for example, on the Main Street Fund alone, of designing an application. We tried to keep that as short as we possibly could, and went through a whole process of making sure that we were not requiring anything that was not absolutely necessary to run the program or to report on the program later on. That all had to be developed and put online, tested extensively, and then used by tens of thousands of businesses. And then once those applications were reviewed, we had to review all of those applications, and once again work with those businesses and individual organizations to make sure that what they were requesting met the requirements. Our whole attitude throughout this entire period was to get this money into the hands of the recipients with as little bureaucracy, so to speak, as necessary, and to really continue to recognize, as I've mentioned, that these funds were relief funds, and we treated them as such and tried to get them out the door as quickly as possible. But there's a lot of businesses had individual circumstances, had individual situations that needed literally a lot of hand-holding from our staff, and also from the Department of Revenue Administration, which was very central to at least that particular program. Then we get to the point of awards. A lot of these programs had literal paper checks that had to go out. That's where our friends at DAS really sort of stepped up and enabled us to move those funds quickly and to get the checks out. The behind the scenes, getting addresses and that sort of thing from us to DRA to DAS, and this whole process was Took a lot of time, but it did actually work, and the results, as I've stated, were pretty good. Now we're very much in the monitoring standpoint and finishing up and getting those reports done. There's a couple of programs, as you know, that we did a little switcheroo at the end of 2021 when they allowed us to put some types of programs into CARES Act from ARPA. Those programs are wrapping up. The recoupment components are wrapping up, and we're getting to the point now where we're able to get a clear vision as to what the numbers are looking like. And I would say, the biggest one that we're watching is the waterfall amount. As you know, at the end of the fund, once all of the CARES Act programs and everything has been said and done and accounted for, anything that's remaining would waterfall into the state's unemployment trust fund. And at this point, we're roughly estimating that to be somewhere between $45 and $70 million and once we get to the end of this whole process. And my friend Chase here spends a lot of late nights reporting to Treasury and gathering information from the different agencies and from so on and so forth to make sure that all occurs. So I guess that's the quick overview. I know of a process that many of you were involved in through the Legislative Advisory Board and some of the stakeholder boards that were occurred under the state of emergency. And again, it's just sort of a snapshot. And again, I think we're planning to come back and be here again at your March meeting and give a similar update on where we are with the ARPA funds. So I think I can stop that there, and certainly happy to talk about or answer any questions anybody might have.
Yes, Senator Gaida.
Very quickly, Madam Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor, for your testimony. I note that your hair once blonde is now gray.
Yes, thank you for noticing, Senator.
And with that, I would ask, is there any kind of an audit function of these funds, spot audits for the integrity of applicants and things like that?
Absolutely. That's a good point. I neglected to mention that, particularly under the larger programs. We absolutely perform spot audits, and we're still doing that. And we do it under ARPA as well.
Yes, Senator Daniels.
Thank you. Would you expect that the amount that you'll be left over in the waterfall going to employment security would be enough to trigger a decrease in rates for employers?
As I recall, there is a threshold that we are trying to meet with that category and to also stay under, because I think we changed that, didn't we? Do you want to explain that a little better?
Chase Hageman, Deputy Director at Gopher. It's probably a better question for NHES, but we have had conversations about ensuring that the timelines are appropriate in terms of meeting any thresholds and triggering any rate cuts or increases. And I believe the amount that we're talking about should not, at least in preliminary conversations, not cause any problems, basically, is really the short answer.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Leishman.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and Commissioner, this report was very helpful. And do you share my concerns? Because I look at a number of the recipients, like veterans programs, homelessness, all good causes. When this money is completely gone, are we going to see a very negative impact on some of these programs that we help create or support, or are my concerns misguided?
That's a good point, Representative Leishman. I mean, we sort of refer to that issue as the prime directive at Gopher, just said jokingly, I guess. But the idea of making these investments as one time as we possibly can make them has been sort of part of the culture throughout. We've been very sensitive to the fact that, as you point out, there are potentially instances where the emergency and the nature of the emergency created an immediate need to benefit the public, to make investments in more than one. Yes, it's sort of operational management type of investments. My hope is that those can trigger institutional changes in those networks where we had to make those investments to avoid the issue of setting up basically a cliff where we have made investments that are going to carry an institution or an organization out to a certain point, and then the money drops and away it goes. So we have had I would say in most instances, what you're seeing in the programs, particularly under ARPA, CARES Act was a little bit different in the sense that it was an emergency situation. But we've been very sensitive to minimizing those types of investments.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there further questions? I'd really like to thank you for bringing this information. I think it's an excellent summary that all of us, I think, knew little parts and pieces of, but didn't have the full picture of what, I can't even say that money. Yes, I can. Only because when I was in the Air Force, we'd say, oh, well, it's $1 billion here and $1 billion there. What difference does it make?
You should have my job, Representative.
Yeah, I should. But anyhow, I really do thank you for this. It's a great summary document. So, thank you.
Happy to do it.
Okay,
Thank you.
appreciate it, and we'll look forward to seeing you in March.
Me as well.
Okay. Are there any questions on the dashboard that HHS has so graciously provided us? Okay, seeing none. I will now move to our audits. Now, I want you to notice that it says we were supposed to, on the schedule, audits were supposed to start at 10:30. Okay? Just so you know. And I apologize for all the questions we had to ask. Yes, we did. No, we didn't do a roll call. Yeah, we did a show of hands.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Steve Smith, Director of Audits for the LBA. The first audit is the college savings plans, which is two components, the unique and the Fidelity Advisor. Joining us from PwC, who's under contract with us in our office, is Declan Byrne. He's the partner. Before he begins, Monica Mezzaprello, State Treasurer, would like to make a few comments related to the audit.
Certainly. Yeah, just make sure the microphone is really close. Okay, good. Thank you.
Perfect. Good morning, Madam Chair. Oh, good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Monica Mezzaprello, State Treasurer and Trustee of the 529 Plan. So first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Byrne and his team at PwC and Director Steve Smith for the collaboration and completing these audits, again, timely and with excellent results. So before I turn it over to Mr. Byrne, I just quickly would like to provide you with a few highlights. As I recently mentioned to you, the New Hampshire 529 plan has been, again, very successful this year. It continues to provide, it continues to benefit many New Hampshire families and many families throughout the country to provide the benefits to help them save for the ultimate goal to save for post-secondary education. The New Hampshire plan remains the fourth largest in the country with approximately $23 billion in assets under management. The plan has about over 800,000 accounts, and you had a very successful year. Over the past year, the plan grew approximately, I don't know, I don't have my glasses with me, 16%, and that can be attributed to, again, the performance of the excellent performance of the capital markets, but also due to the contributions from our program manager, Fidelity Investments, that continue their efforts to increase new accounts and increase contributions. As this plan continues to mature and more families use these funds to withdraw them for the college expenses, again, the plan continues with a steady growth. As you also know, the state also benefits from the administrative assessment that is charged to 529 participants. And again, the state in fiscal year 21 received approximately 17.7 million. And with those funds, the state was able to provide about 7,000 scholarships to low-income New Hampshire students. So again, another successful year there. The scholarships that were provided ranged between $1,000 and $11,000 for families, for students. So again, another successful year, so we hope that this trend continues in many years to come. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Byrne for the actual audit results.
Perfect, thanks a lot. And it's great to be here in person. For the record, I'm Declan Byrne, the audit partner responsible for the audits for PwC for the 529 plans here in New Hampshire. It is great to be here in person. It's been 2 years since we presented these results in person, and it's one of the highlights of the year for me to come here and present the results. We did provide our materials in advance. Maybe I'll refer to page 6, which is the substantive areas of our audit which we executed as of 9/30 year end. As Monica said, it was a very successful audit. No major findings as part of this year's audit. We signed off our audit opinion on December 20th. That was pretty consistent with prior year, pretty consistent with where we planned, and our designed audit procedures did not have to substantively change during the course of the audit. And that's a reflection of the good support we got from both Fidelity, the administrator, as well as Monica and team as we worked through our audits through October, November, and December. So pretty standard, good results. A lot of our team will work from home, but that is the new normal. I highlight on some of the pages here some of the reportable items, and there's not a lot significant of a negative manner to report. We did not find any significant deficiencies, material weaknesses, fraud, illegal acts, or anything in the control environment worthy of your attention. We rely significantly on the audits or of the internal controls of Fidelity as the provider. They house the books and records, and we spend a lot of time with that organization understanding their control environment and making sure they're accurately recording the existence, valuation, and indeed the plan expenses that are in the plan. We didn't find any exceptions. We did no unrecorded misstatements or recorded misstatements. So I would say it was a very smooth, well-organized audit, and we released on time so our team could go off and have their Christmas break. In terms of our other areas of focus in the audit, that's fraud. We certainly tend to mix up our procedures every year from an unpredictability standpoint, testing immaterial items just to keep Fidelity on their toes. No exceptions noted. We also do fraud inquiries with members of management, and nothing came to our attention from a fraud or legal acts perspective. The other parts of our report covers our required communications, and these are standard under professional standards, and I'd refer to them on 8 and 10. But really, we had nothing of significance that I would actually draw your attention. We have a lot of no answers here. That's a good result. Some of the major highlights here is we didn't encounter many difficulties in the audit. The quality of the financial statements are always in line with professional standards, and we have no major exceptions as it relates to disclosures. As I mentioned, no control deficiencies or identified misstatements. So overall, as we sit back, we're very pleased that we signed off on time. Great collaboration with management. We're very happy that we're able to finish on time and in a well-organized manner. So another successful year behind us, and we thank both Monica and team, and indeed Fidelity for being good partners and giving us all the required support on time so we're able to effectively finish our audit. So with that, happy to answer any questions. I know our materials has the other required communications there, just our standard representation letters, engagement letters that we work with Steve, Monica and team, but nothing of note, all in line with what you'd expect and probably seen before.
Well, I'm happy that our 529 accounts are in good shape. And I also didn't realize, I knew that we had a large 529 program, but I didn't realize we were 4th in the U.S. I think
We're the fourth largest in the country.
Yeah.
The other largest are Virginia, Nevada, New York. We're behind them, but
Okay.
still
But
doing
yeah,
good.
that just really speaks to the quality of our 529 program, and I know this has been going on for years and years and years, and thank you for keeping up the good work.
My pleasure, Madam Chair.
Just to remind the committee, in order to comply with SEC requirements, you previously approved the release when available of these reports. I believe back in November you submitted so.
Oh, I don't want to get it in SEC trouble. I can get into enough trouble. Oh, sorry. Okay. Yeah, without any help. Okay, Steve.
So, okay, thank you.
Oh.
And
That
our-
covered both unique
Yes,
and
yes.
529?
Yep, two, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yep, so.
Thank you.
So the last audit was performed by our office. Joining me is Vilay Skids. She's a senior audit manager that was in charge of this performance audit. Also joining us from Child Care Unit is Unit Chief, I believe is Melissa Clement. So with that, I'll turn it over to Vilay to present.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Vilay Skids, and this afternoon I'll be presenting the Child Care Licensing Unit, or CCLU, Performance Audit Report. The purpose of our audit was to determine whether the CCLU's licensing functions were efficient and effective during fiscal years 2018 to 2021. And our executive summary starts on page 1. We found the CCLU was generally effective in helping to ensure child care programs in New Hampshire were compliant with licensing requirements. It was also responsive to the child care programs it oversaw. Almost 90% of child care programs responding to our survey reported CCLU staff were professional, knowledgeable, fair, and responsive. As shown in our recommendation summary on page 3, our report contains 8 observations with recommendations to increase the CCLU's efficiency and ensure it continues to operate effectively. The CCLU concurred with all 8 observations. They require some legislative action. Our first 3 observations address timeliness. We found the CCLU processed initial permits quickly so that new child care programs could begin operating as soon as possible. This was consistent with its priority of ensuring new programs opened quickly. Even during the COVID-19 pandemic, it processed permits 12 days faster than before the pandemic. However, it did not always convert permits to full licenses timely. Half of the permits we reviewed were not converted to full 3-year licenses before the permit expired. Additionally, less than 20% of the renewal licenses we renewed were processed within the time limits established in statute. Finally, we found the CCLU needed to improve its process to ensure programs filed their renewal applications timely. But despite these shortcomings, programs remained open to ensure children were not displaced while the CCLU processed applications. Additional management oversight and some legislative action establishing specific application processing timeframes could help the CCLU be more efficient in processing renewals. 3 of our observations, numbers 4, 5, and 7, discuss the CCLU's oversight of licensing rules. We found the CCLU conducted unannounced visits to child care programs as required by federal law. In fact, 99% of the programs we reviewed received at least 1 unannounced visit each year. However, the CCLU had not implemented a standardized tool for licensing coordinators to use when conducting annual visits, risking some inconsistency, although it is working towards one. The CCLU was also effective in ensuring programs corrected violations of critical rules before issuing licenses. Critical rules were those which were deemed most likely to jeopardize the health, safety, or well-being of children or the operations of the child care program itself. However, we found the CCLU needed a formal process to monitor the child care program's correct violations of non-critical rules, as well as a process to track when corrective action plans were due. Our remaining two observations, number 6 and 8, address improvements to the background check process and strengthening data collection to help management evaluate CCLU's performance. Our report also contains two other issues and concerns that did not rise to the level of an observation, but CCLU management may want to consider. These include reviewing the process for making employment eligibility determinations for some child care workers who previously lived outside of New Hampshire, and establishing a process to track the reasons why child care programs close. Our report also contains some information on the state of the child care industry. This chapter starts on page 11. In this section, we provide a map showing licensed child care capacity by municipality as of June 30th, 2021. The map shows areas where there are high concentrations of licensed child care spaces in dark blue, while areas where there are no licensed child care spaces in dark red. You can also see on table 2 on page 13 that New Hampshire...
Excuse me.
Yes.
When you say there are no beds available, no beds. No spaces available.
Yes.
Does that mean they have childcare, but it's just not open? You just don't have slots for people?
No, that means that there are no licensed child care facility spaces in that town. So there may be license exempt facilities, which we didn't look at, but those areas in red have no child care programs.
That's very scary. Thank you.
You're welcome. You can also see in Table 2 on page 13 that New Hampshire had a net loss in the number of child care programs of about 3% each year, or a total of 9% during the entire audit period. However, the loss of licensed child care spaces wasn't as drastic. If you look at Table 4 on page 15, you'll see that from fiscal years 2018 to 2019, the state actually had a net gain in licensed child care spaces. The same was true for fiscal years 2019 to 2020. The only time period New Hampshire had a net loss in child care spaces was between fiscal years 2020 and 2021, during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The actual impact on the number of child care spaces is still unclear. Even though the number of licensed child care spaces did not change drastically, child care programs who responded to our survey indicated they were operating at about 20% below their licensed capacity. As child care supply and demand begin to stabilize in the state, the CCLU will have to continue to review its processes and adjust its practices. This concludes my presentation. I'd like to thank the CCLU staff for their help during the audit, and I'll turn it over to Melissa Clement for a few comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I want to first thank the audit team for their work. I really have appreciated their collaboration and cooperation as they came in and requested our records and reviewed everything and made these observations. We concurred with everything that they found. We recognize that we do need to strengthen some of our policies and procedures. Some of that is due to the fact that I have worked in the child care licensing unit for 20 years. The supervisors I have under me have been there 14 years or longer, as has our office staff. So much of our policies and procedures are probably not written down as well and as clearly as they should be. It's institutional knowledge that we've had because we have such a long-term staff in our office. So we are definitely working on remedying that situation. We recognize the need to do that as well. And we certainly look forward to implementing what has been recommended as we move forward so we can improve our efficiency. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Well, it's very nice to see that childcare is not falling apart like we thought it would be. And maybe it is, but we just don't realize it yet. With, closures and the percentage, but really I thank you for all of the work that you do in this, and I am familiar with your inspections, and they're very thorough, and as they should be. So, Are there any
you,
other
Madam Chair.
questions? Yes, Representative Emmerich. Nope, you turned yourself off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was stunned when I read this. On page 1, in the first paragraph, it says there are over 1,000 licensing rules. How can anyone keep track of 1,000 rules?
So, thank you for that question, and it's an eye-opening one. I absolutely understand that. When you look at the childcare licensing rules and how they're laid out, the rule section is HEC 4002. So when you look at any rules in that section, they are often, say, HEC 400204, letter A, number 1, Roman numeral 1. So they're broken up so that they're very specific. So it looks like 1,000 rules, but they may have an overall subject such as the registration form needs to contain the following items. So the registration form has like 19 items we require, so it's 19 rules. So it's still a lot. We are working with the new rule that we have submitted to OLS and it is under review hopefully soon by Joint Legislative Committee on Administrative Rules. We have done our best to condense them. We have created more sections, but fewer rules. So we are working towards that. We completely understand it, but
it was just a stunning number, that's
yes,
all.
and some of that just has to do with how previous rules, when they were written, they were laid out so they were very specific, such as name, date of birth, address. Like could be 19 rules just for that one registration form.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are there any further questions? Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for your continued good work.
Thank you
Appreciate
very much.
it. Okay, last time, Michael hollered at me. So I'm not going to forget to discuss when our next meeting is.
Oh, that's fine, Madam Chair. We just need a motion to release the audit, the performance audit.
Oh, okay.
The first two were already, as Steve stated, were already released relative to the SEC. So just a motion to accept, place on file, and release in the ordinary manner.
So moved.
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought we had released all of these, but.
That's okay.
It's okay.
I
You
made
wanna,
the motion. And
Terry, and,
seconded by Senator Gaida.
okay, Senator Gaida. Can I do this and all in favor, or do I? Okay, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed?
9-0.
No,
Thank you.
8-0.
8-0. Oh, right,
Okay.
okay.
8-0. Okay. Audits. All right, date of next meeting. I don't have a calendar.
So the third Friday would be March 18th, if the committee wanted to stick with that.
I think that's a wonderful day. Yeah, that's okay. I don't drink green beer. You know, something I forgot to mention is, I don't know if any of you have looked at this streaming YouTube video, but there are closed captions on the screen, and you need to remember to truly enunciate very clearly, because otherwise there are some embarrassing things that show up on the scrolling. So I should have mentioned that at the beginning and I didn't, but I will mention it at the end so that next time we're in a session like this, we will try to remember to enunciate.
No, don't. That way we'll have some good entertainment.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think we need that. All right, is there any further business? Seeing none, thank you all very much. I thought